who struggled early, and he's a walking bucket now, it feels like.
Jeremy Roach in that Texas Tech game was insane, dude.
Yeah, he was just making.
He just carried them late.
Yeah. So
Jeremy Roach. What did you have? Did you hit your over 9.5 on Jeremy Roach?
Dude, no, it was
he got 9. He got 9. Yeah,
I know.
I didn't the free throws too.
I didn't take it, but I didn't take it, but I told everyone to like in the bar to take it, dude. They were like, "Dude, player prop, like give me one." I was like, over on Jeremy Roach points. I felt so bad, dude.
It happens.
It does happen, but I remember seeing the 7 and 8 and being like, "Oh man." A lot of time left, Dunny. Come on, never.
Yeah, he had like 6 at the half. I'm like, dude, we're golden. Nope. They just got up so big. They didn't even need him to score.
Not at all.
No, that game.
That was
really
an ugly game, bro.
It was so. Yeah, it was gross.
Dude, the Elite Eight was just boring. The best game was Nova Houston, but it was a defensive struggle.
I bet that was my only betting mistake of the weekend. Was I put a lot of money on Houston. I just thought they were going to be able to grind it out. And the second I watched like the first 5 minutes, I was like, nope, we're done.
Well, that's the thing. Like everything Houston does, Nova just did slightly better. And I know Houston have better ratings, but Nova just loves that style of basketball. They're like, you want to slow it down? That's fine with us. Houston, they are so active. That's why they get so many offensive rebounds. That's why they get so many chances. They're just always moving, but that's literally the definition of Nova's defense. And they're probably the best coach team, in my opinion.
Whoa.
I just think in terms of like coaching guys up, like the talent you have to coaching them up, Jay Wright does a phenomenal job.
Jay Wright is incredible. I mean, the coaching matchups, the only unknown is our boy Hubert. I mean, he's never seen this.
Final four for him, unreal.
But is Roy coaching UNC? Because it kind of feels like it. He gets more. Who gets more shots on TV? Is it Hubie or is it Roy Williams?
It's probably Roy. It's probably Roy.
Yeah. You know what? If that Duke also for my Coach K drinking game, which is going to continue on Final Four Saturday because the shots they're going to load up those shots. That game was too much of a blowout. They didn't need to show us stressed out Coach K. Like we were doing it mostly in the first half, and they weren't showing it. And I'm like, you know what? They're not even showing him now. They need to save all the K shots for later in the game. He's a smart director. He's got to do it later on. And then it never really manifested. They were just up by 20.
Yeah, I know.
That's whatever. I started this recording because we were just talking. I figured that would be good talk. So welcome to Happy Hour Hoops Final Four show. I don't know if any of you realized that.
I did. I just thought you were nudging us to get going.
No, I wasn't. It wasn't even a nudge. It was just I felt like we were having like good conversation.
I was cool with it. Yeah.
Let's just have this as a nice little start, and then we can go off. So yeah, we kind of just broke down the Elite Eight a little bit. That's what we were doing. Jake Micah here, my co-host Donovan Holden, as always, and our March Madness experts have been here this whole run. Stevie, Troy, TV dinner, some guy named Steve. How you guys doing this evening? Evening, yes.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Doing well too.
So we talked about this scenario. Everybody talked about this scenario. Yeah. I can't believe it's actually here though. Duke, North Carolina on one side of the bracket, and then the other side. I mean, if Duke, just imagine Duke and North Carolina were on the other side, we would be salivating over a or a Nova Kansas matchup too. Like what an incredible Final Four we've got.
That's the craziest part is Nova versus Kansas is like in the shadows for a Final Four matchup. Like it's a Final Four matchup that's just getting so overlooked, and it's Villanova versus Kansas. Like that's just how defines how this Final Four is. I mean, it's casual basketball fans absolutely love it, and I think diehard college basketball fans like it too. Even though we do like to see some other teams here and there, it's nice to see a Final Four with 4 like true blue bloods, just dominant programs, just fantastic coaches. I know you were saying with Hubert, he's a new coach. The other 3, South, Coach K, and Jay Wright, they're pretty decent at basketball, and just
probably the 3 best, right?
Yeah, I mean it's
at least the top 5 for all of them.
Yeah, easily. I mean, I think you can make the argument they're the top 3 in basketball right now. You can make the argument they're top 5.
And the other guy would have been Roy.
In the conversation. Yeah,
that's the crazy thing is this infrastructure that UNC has is still clearly it's all there. Like we still have to give credit to Hubert Davis for what they've been able to pull off.
Absolutely,
but clearly it's built off of this whole thing that Roy has built there and everything. It's just crazy, and I don't know. It was just the last thing of this year of chaos, Troy, this season that felt like it was like wide open. And we talked about it so many times. To have this Final Four just feels so strange that these are the teams that ended up throughout the chaos.
It does. And I feel like people aren't kind of realizing that North Carolina is still an 8 seed. You know, they're an 8 seed still in the Final Four. But I really think this could potentially be the greatest Final Four of all time. I mean, why not? I mean, you already have probably the greatest semifinal game of all time with Duke, North Carolina.
For sure.
We were just talking about how it's weird that Kansas and Villanova is an afterthought. Like, that's going to be a phenomenal game. But
usually our undercard game is kind of underwhelming, right? Like we're trying to convince ourselves that to get excited for it. Like we don't need, like, I'm ready for game one. That game one is going to be game one could be a classic. Game one could be a basketball classic because there's not as much emotion. Game two, especially what I'm most interested to see, Dunny, I think, is like, I was listening to Titus and Tate and they were talking about this as well. Like, what's the crowd going to be? If it's going to be just like a local, if it's all of Chapel Hill and of Durham just invading like Superdome, that kind of energy, I don't know if we've ever seen that in a college sporting event. Like the closest thing I would think is like Bama, Georgia at the Superdome a couple years ago. And that atmosphere was fucking crazy in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I can compare it to. But Dunny, what do you think, like, of just, I don't know, just what are your expectations of the atmosphere and everything? Because this feels like the first big Final Four we've had in a long time, and especially with the pandemic and everything else too, like the atmosphere we should expect.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's atmosphere-wise, it's going to be insane, like absolutely nutty. And it's cool, and I think fans kind of deserve this after the last 2 years we've had in sports, where it's like there was no fans, then there was limited fans and masks, and like I feel like this Final Four, and you know, we're kind of finally getting back to sports games being normal again, and all the procedures kind of the same as it used to be, and to have this Final Four. And we spent some time talking about the names, you know, these team names, all the big names. It's a blue blood central for the Final Four. But I actually really appreciate that the individual players that we have in this Final Four as well. I mean, outside of, you know, the Gonzaga guys getting knocked off, and then, you know, Auburn having the best player in college basketball, probably them being out too. I mean, the individual talent in these last 2 games and then the championship is going to be on another level. I mean, the 3 guys, the 3-headed monster at Duke, Caleb Love, in North Carolina, like, I don't know. I'm excited for the individual play as much as we're excited for these names that are in the Final Four too.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about an individual that's just taking their game to the next level, it's Armando Bacot for Carolina.
Yeah.
What he's done in the tournament, I mean, he's gotten a double-double in every game. 17-10 against Marquette, 15-16 against Baylor, 14-15 against UCLA. And then no one's talking about it because it was a blowout game, but against St. Peter's, he had 20 points and 22 rebounds.
Wow.
This guy has been
like
a monster, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see because I think everyone's talking about how good Duke's playing right now. You look at the past couple, you know, probably 3-4 weeks, go back even a month, the way Carolina changed the way they were playing basketball at the beginning of the year to now, you could say it's probably been the biggest improvement of any team in college basketball. Because the start of the year, they couldn't defend a soul. They just looked like a lazy defense. Their offense was just, it was a hit or miss. It was a streaky offense. And now Carolina's a team that can threaten to score 85, 90 points any single night and average around 45 rebounds. It is ridiculous how they crash the glass, both offensively and defensively. Bacot is a big reason why. But this Carolina team has been so much fun to watch, and they're playing their best basketball now going into the biggest game in arguably probably program history for either of these teams. Duke and
Brady
Carolina.
Manic with the Bill Walton look.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I think it's without question the biggest game in this rivalry ever. I mean,
yeah, it has to be.
Set aside the fact that it's the final. I mean, the fact that it's the Final Four in general is the crazy part. But add in the fact that it could potentially be Coach K's last game, and we already saw like Duke is motivated because they got scolded in front of all their fans by Coach K and walloped by North Carolina. That's fresh in their memory. In Carolina's mind, they're playing with house money still. Like going into that game, they were playing with house money, and they've played with that kind of freeness basically all the way through the tournament. We thought we were going to get this matchup in the ACC tournament. Obviously, the basketball gods were like, "Don't worry, guys. We're not going to let you down. We're going to give you the rubber match you wanted." And here we are. So, Troy, I'll start with you. I wanted to ask you guys how each team is going to win this national title. I think it's pretty the blueprint for each team is pretty straightforward because of the way they've gotten there. But North Carolina, we'll start with them since they're on there. How do they get past Duke and then whoever they would face in Villanova or Kansas in the national title? What do they need to do this weekend to win the Natty?
Yeah, I think if they keep shooting the lights out, they can beat anyone. They scored 95 against Marquette, 93 against Baylor. Went down a little bit against UCLA in that St. Peter's game. It was a blowout really from the first tip on. A slower pace of a game. They only scored 69 points, but they've been playing amazing basketball the past month and a half really. When they lost to Pitt, I think it was like February 15th, around Valentine's Day. They lost to Pitt, and that could have been their season. They might not have made the tournament after that, but they've been playing like one of the better teams in the nation since, and it's brought them to a Final Four. We just talked about Baycott. He's averaging a double-double. He's had a double-double every single game, and even the last two games in the ACC tournament, he had a double-double too. And every player on this team, it seems like they can score 25 plus. I think there's been Baycott has scored. He scored 20 last game. Bannock scored 28 and 26 the first two games. Caleb Love scored 30 against UCLA, and RJ Davis scored 30 against Baylor. They're scorers on this team.
Yeah, their offense can threaten to score 85, 90 every single night, which is crazy. And like we said, their biggest liability was their defense, and it's really improved over the past month or so. That offense has been explosive, and the big thing for me with Carolina, if they want to win the Natty, they just got to keep dominating the glass like they have. They out-rebounded Marquette by 15 in the first round. They out-rebounded Baylor, which is a hard team to out-rebound, by 9 in the second round. They out-rebounded UCLA by 9, and then when they blew out St. Peter's, they out-rebounded by 16. They are just crashing the glass on the offensive and defensive side. And what does that mean? That means extra possessions, and they've capitalized on them. When you have a team like Carolina, like Troy said, where their offense, anyone could score like 20 a night on this team. This team can threaten to score 90 points, and you're getting those extra possessions. That's when it becomes dangerous. And if they could just keep riding that hot offense, I think the rebounds are going to be there. They just look mentally different than they did a couple months ago. And I can't wait to see this Duke game, because I really don't think we're going to see a blowout in either of these two Final Four games. I think both games are going to be tight.
I agree.
And I just think it's going to be high-intensity basketball, both of them. I can't wait for Duke Carolina, because Carolina's going to want to score. They're going to want to push the pace. They want to score as much as they can, and they're going to be all over the glass on Duke. And Duke really hasn't had that yet in the tournament, so we'll see.
It is obviously the run is kind of impeccable and everything with just the way they've looked all year. But I just looked it up quick, and 4 of their 5 starters that are in this game are 5-star recruits. So it's not a team that's lacking with talent. They're still they've probably just underachieved to what they should have been. This team should have been a top 20 team all year long and was just inconsistent. And maybe it was just getting used to a new voice. That's a big change. And I was reading an article in The Athletic, a big profile on Hubert Davis, and his role as the assistant coach, he was never like the loud and out there guy. He was kind of the quiet guy who would pop in, yell when he needed to, but was just kind of analyzing, learning everything. He coached on the JV team, but everybody just kind of thought he was the quiet guy and everything. So going from that to being, the leader of this historic program, following 2 of the most legendary coaches in the sport, that's a lot to ask for. Maybe it just took some adjustment, and now this team they clearly believe in themselves. Whatever he's doing, it's working. Whatever he's doing lately, it's working. So, all right, what about their opponent then, Stevie? The Duke Blue Devils. I think it's pretty simple. I think that they have the best player left in the tournament at this point, and a lot of times we've seen the teams with the best player be able to pull these games out late. I don't really know what. Leaky Black and those other guys are going to be able to give Paolo a little trouble, but he looks like he's in a different zone. And Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo earlier this week said they were talking to executives, and like Paolo's the guy right now. That's what's going to be coming out of this tournament, is that Paolo is going to be number one, far and ahead of Holmgren, Smith, Ivy, anybody else. So is it going to be that simple, or what else does Duke need to do?
I mean, that's what I've heard too. He's really taken his game to the next level in the tournament, and he can do basically anything for this team. If you need a guy who can drive, Paolo can do that. If you need a guy who can shoot, he can do that. You need him to move off the ball, off the dribble, he can do that. Move off the ball, he can do that. He's been Mr. Everything for Duke, and I think he's going to be a huge part of it. But I also look at the play of Mark Williams. Mark Williams has been one of the most improved players in the country from how he started this year to now. He is going to be that big man who's going to match up with the Carolina bigs, going to match up with their size. And Mark Williams, I think, is a huge X factor for this Duke. He needs to keep playing at the level he's been playing at, because he's been sensational so far in this tournament. I mean, you look at what Mark Williams has done so far. He had 12-12 against Arkansas. He had 16-8 against Texas Tech, and that is a tough team to have. 16-8 against, 15-8 against Michigan State, and 15-7 against Fullerton. And I know Fullerton was kind of a blowout. It doesn't really matter, but he's played fantastic in every single game, and he's played so much better than he started the year. And it was kind of, concerning, right? Because Mark Williams, he's only a sophomore. He's young. You got Banchero, who's a freshman. It's a young team, and a lot of times the inexperience of the tournament, those guys aren't the guys who step up. Well, they have, and that's a big thing for him, because Wendell Moore Jr. has really been the X factor for Duke so far this year. He has been the guy who stepped up when they needed to in the games, but now he doesn't really have to be that guy. Banchero and Williams are really taking on that role, and it makes Duke terrifying, because they probably have the most talented roster of all these four teams remaining. And if the young guys, Williams and Banchero, just continue to play like they're 25-year-olds, like vets who have been in the league for 5-6 years,
that's part of it.
This team's terrifying, because talent-wise, this is the most talented team of the remaining four, without question. I don't think you can really argue that. Everyone's biggest concern of Duke going into the tournament was they're a little inexperienced. They haven't really played a gauntlet of a schedule, because the ACC's had more of a down year in terms of the depth of it. Obviously, Miami, Carolina, and Duke went on some great runs in the tournament. And obviously, the ACC looked great in the tournament so far, because they have, I think, the most wins as a conference, but that is because of the runs they went on. But overall, Duke's season, it was like, all right, they're a little inconsistent, a little inexperienced, haven't really tested themselves too much. And they're kind of answering every single one of those questions. It doesn't really matter the opponent. They've risen to the challenge. They played Michigan State in a great close game. Texas Tech was a close game. Arkansas, they kind of controlled the whole way. But these are good teams that Duke showed, hey, even though we're inexperienced, we're going to play like we're vets. And that's what they've been doing. They're doing what I thought Kentucky was going to do this year, when they had their young players, that have been playing up all year, playing like experienced guards, experienced forwards. Duke's doing that in the tournament, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, I think maybe the most impressive thing about Banchero too is his 3-point shooting. Yes. Like Fullerton, 50% from three, Michigan State 40%, Texas Tech 75% from three, and then Arkansas 50% from three. Like, I feel like even good shooters in college basketball, you don't see numbers like that.
Yeah, no one's contesting it. He's just and anything.
Earlier in the season, like when I first thought of him, it's not like my mind goes right to 3-point shooter. I don't think of him as a sharpshooter. And then he's already pretty much unguardable, and then he has a strap like this in the tournament. I mean.
So do you think it's pretty fair that he'd be the number one prospect if we're just looking NBA wise quick?
Yeah, I would draft him first overall,
I think so. I don't want to overreact just to a tournament, but I also think he had the hype.
I love seeing guys ball out
coming into this year anyways, right? He had the hype anyways, and he was already considered going to be a top 5 pick regardless. He's playing his way, I think, into the number 1 pick. I think it's hard to ignore 7'2" Chet Holmgren and what he could be if he gets about 15 pounds of muscle on him.
Yes.
And it's hard to ignore Jabari Smith's entire season, because he was sensational. He also can shoot the ball, but I think he definitely at least put his name into the conversation of first overall pick. And I think if he goes first overall, I don't think anyone's going to say that's a bad pick or you reached.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I think he's the most complete.
Okay. And that's crazy as a freshman, right?
Jabari, the thing about Jabari, like I think the separator is that with the most complete being part of it is Jabari is going to be a gunner. Like Jabari in the wrong situation could be a very high volume, very inefficient guy. And I think that was what kind of hurt Auburn in the end too, was that they relied on that a lot too. But the one thing I will, before we move on any to the rest of these teams and with the draft prospects and anything, I will say Jaden Ivey did not show up in that St. Peter's game at all. And that's a Purdue team that's the Purdue performance. I'm not gonna sit here and stomp on Purdue like I don't have to say anything about it. I really do, but I want to talk about the Final Four more. But I didn't think I thought Ivy was gonna have some dog in him and like go at it, and that was the exact opposite. So I think that's what hurt him more in this draft process coming out of this. Like I'd rather take Jabari Chet or Paulo. I'm gonna get that right eventually. Paulo, just because of the size and the way the league is at this point. And Ivy had that chance to go about it, and that was not great. Troy, the Villanova Wildcats. You needed them here. Did you save your bracket with Villanova at all?
I mean, I have two Final Four teams. It's Kansas and Villanova.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
I have Kansas. I know I have Kansas going in my bracket, but unfortunately, the bracket with my friends, I'm no matter what, I'm going to lose by at least 10, 20 points, unless someone has Duke winning it all. So obviously, if they win, I got no shot. But
what if Carolina wins and
I think I would still lose by 10 points.
Man, you are close. That's just tough.
And especially I had Kentucky on the first day. I was just like, this shittiest bracket I've ever made.
Fair enough.
And it comes down to one single first round game. That's 10 points right there,
Yeah.
So whatever. But I mean, Villanova, they lost Justin Moore, the second leading scorer, 14.8 points per game. That's obviously going to hurt. But I mean, why count out the Villanova Wildcats? We've seen this before. They're always there. They're always going to.
Weren't they missing someone? Weren't they missing somebody when they beat UNC? Wasn't somebody big hurt for them, or am I mistaking that?
Oh, you're saying the championship year?
Yeah, a couple years ago. I feel like somebody was missing in that game too, but I'll go look back.
I think
anyway.
Right.
Well, I was going to mention that last year they lost Colin Gillespie. He hurt his leg, and they still were with Baylor at least till halftime in the Sweet 16 game last year, and Baylor took over the second half.
And that Baylor team wasn't losing last year. They were a great team. To play them the way they did was impressive enough.
Yeah. So we have seen this before. I mean, I don't want to say that they're just gonna flop like a fish and just lay there, but they're definitely gonna put up a fight. It's Villanova. You can't count out Jay Wright. We talked about this last show. You just can't count them out. I mean, they're really down to 5 guys though. Losing Justin Moore, they really only play 6 players.
That's
so
true.
Now they're gonna have that 6th player be a starter, and I mean, I have no idea who's gonna be their 6th man or 7th man. But their tallest guy now is 6'8". They got to go up against McCormick in Kansas, 6'10". And I mean, Stevie said this for multiple weeks now that he plays bigger than 6'10". So that might be a struggle for them down low coast. But I mean, if they win, I mean, I don't think there's a stat really that can tell you they're going to win. It's just that they've been there before, and they're Villanova. You can't really count them out no matter what. They have one of the best guards in the nation. I think he probably is the best point guard in the nation, facilitating and can make the big shot in Colin Gillespie, but he would be the reason why they could win the national championship this year.
Yeah, it's crazy they got the win last game.
Yeah.
And he was pretty much alone down the stretch there. I mean,
yeah.
That game was so ugly. You want to talk about ugly basketball? Holy crap.
That's what I love about Nova, though, is they're like Houston likes to play that slow style grind.
And they're like,
down.
bring it on.
We're going to dominate possessions. And Jay Wright's like, that's fine. We will play your game and we'll play it better than you. And that's what Nova could do. When they play a team that wants to play fast, Nova will speed up. They'll play it in an offensive shootout. You want to slow it down? They're fine. They'll slow it down. They're very stubborn defense. They play a very man-to-man
and they're
style.
They're going to hit shots. That's the thing.
and they play that 5-out offense, which is so tough to defend if you don't know how to defend it, especially when you're surrounded by shooters. I am concerned with Moore going down because, like I said, before the year started, I loved Nova because their team was kind of built the same way Baylor's was last year. A couple stretch forwards, a lot of elite guards. But the depth is a big concern for me now. And it is concerning because Moore played the most minutes per game for them. He was their second leading scorer. He was a guy who could do it all. He was, I think, their second or third leading rebounder, too. Like, this was a do-it-all type of guard and a great defender. That's one thing people don't talk about. Moore was a fantastic defender for Nova. So I'm curious to see how the defense is going to look more so than the offense, because with Villanova, with Jay Wright, they're just going to plug someone in and they're going to make open shots because Villanova's been doing that for the past 5-10 years.
Yeah.
But defense is the one that concerns me. But I think Troy's right where you can never count Villanova out, especially in March, especially in the Final Four, especially as an underdog too. I mean, the Jay Wright coach team with experienced guards, a team that doesn't beat themselves. What are the two things Nova does that is so crucial to winning close games in March? They don't miss free throws and they don't turn the ball over. That is huge. So when you have a team like that, built like that, with a coach like Jay Wright, they're always going to be in the games. Moore is a huge injury because without Moore, I would have honestly probably bet them to win the whole thing. The way they looked so far this year, the way they looked come tournament time, the Moore injury kills me, but I'm not going to try to overreact too much to it. It's still Villanova. It's still Jay Wright. It's still an experienced team that doesn't beat themselves. You can never count that out in March.
I think the size scares me more than them not having more.
Yes, but I also think too that they have overcome it this year. Like they have, Houston's not a small team. Houston doesn't have like a 7-footer, but they are a big team. They have like big forwards, and Nova was just as tough, if not tougher than them. And that's what Houston dominated all year for, right? Houston dominated those low possessions, limited possession games where they could just get the extra rebounds. And Nova said, we're going to beat you at your own game. And I agree. I think that was my biggest concern. That's probably why I didn't write them into the championship when the brackets came out, because I thought they were going to eventually play Arizona, who's got 3 7-footers. And I was like, that's too much size for Nova. So I agree, Dunny. I think that's a big concern, especially if they do end up beating Kansas and they face a Duke or UNC that has a lot of size. But with Villanova, you can never count them out. They're a team that just plays so tough. And when you play tough, you can make up for it. You saw against Houston. It was the first time I think I've seen all year where Houston was just out like tough. They were just tougher than Houston. That's one thing you'll never, like, you may be the way you beat Houston, you shoot 60% and you get lucky. You make a bunch of threes. Villanova beat Houston by scoring 50 points. They scored 50 points and won that game. That says a lot about the team, I think, more than anything else for Villanova.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with that. So that's a lot of. It sounds like we know what way Stevie's leading in his Final Four predictions, but I'm gonna give you
the injury that kills me though. It really does. I've been back and forth because of that Moore injury.
So what does Kansas need to do to put this Villanova team that is so adaptable always in a bind? Because I feel like this Kansas team, I don't know, this Kansas team is very balanced all year long. Yeah. This game just feels like the biggest like coin flip in the world to me. I really don't know what to expect. I feel like Jay Wright and Bill Self it's just gonna be a chess match the whole game. I don't see any way this game isn't close. So what does it come down to for Kansas in the end to kind of be able to pull it out against Villanova? What do they need to do to impose their strengths?
You want to start, Troy?
Either one. Yeah, go for it.
I'll go. I think if Remy Martin and Ochai Agbaji if they show up, Remy Martin was hurt for most of the regular season, and he came back with 2 or 3 games left in the regular season, and Kansas has just been a different team ever since. I mean, Ochai Agbaji is a first-team All-American. Pretty sure he was unanimously chosen for that, and he hasn't been the best player on Kansas in the tournament, and they've still made it to the Final Four. I think. Yeah, Remy had 15 the first game, 20 against Creighton, 23 against Providence, and then he had 9 points against Miami, but they really didn't need it because Ochai Agbaji had 18 that game. He finally reached his season average. But I mean, Villanova does play great defense. They have to overcome that, but I think we've talked about this before. Great guard play in March, and they have 2 phenomenal guards, and that can win them a national championship, and it can definitely beat Villanova and beat Duke or North Carolina.
Yeah, and I think Agbaji is one of those guys that people don't talk about. He's probably the second most talented player in remaining in the tournament after Banchero. And he's a guy, too, who at any point, any game could score 30 a night. And that's something that is overlooked, especially against a Villanova team, where Villanova is a stubborn defensive team. They play man-to-man. They don't switch too often. They play on their guy. And they play a 5-out offense. In Agbaji, if he's able to expose that defense just a little bit and Kansas can get, points in transition, that's really where they started pulling away against Miami. Miami was playing great at the start. They were leading at halftime. And then Kansas really locked it up defensively. And Kansas has never been a dominant defensive team. But when they play really good defense, it just leads to their transition baskets. And that's when you could just tell they were just pulling away from Miami. Like, it was just a completely different game they were playing, just a different sport. It looked like Miami on one side of court, Kansas on the other. And if they can get running against Villanova, I think that's a big key for them, because they could also probably carry that into the championship if they do face a Duke or Carolina and run with them, because a lot of teams cannot keep up with Kansas in transition.
It's going to be a blast. Dunny, any comments on Ochai Agbaji? Like, do you think or just in general on this Kansas team, or just in the Final Four? I mean, we're getting into our predictions here, so if you want to lead us off into there, we can go from there. I'm very excited about this Kansas team. I think we've been pretty high on them throughout this March Madness discussion the last couple weeks. The
only last thing I had on this game, I think Villanova obviously has a fighting chance for all the reasons we've talked about. Coaching. Everyone keeps leaning on that free throw shooting about Villanova, best free throw shooting team in the tournament. It's obviously helped them get this far. But I don't know. I think I'm really just gonna harp on this size advantage that Kansas has, because not only do the forwards have it, but I think the guards have it as well. Like, if they can be physical enough with Gillespie and take him out of the game. Like, Christian Braun, I'm pretty sure is like 6'6", 6'7", and he plays off ball for them. So I think if they can bother Villanova early and kind of just be the more physical team. I know Nova usually is up for that challenge, like you said, Stevie. They kind of handled that battle with Houston, and that's not an easy team to do that too. But yeah, I think they can be taken out of this game early if played physical enough. And that's what I'm going to be paying attention to for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And you're right, Kansas guards, they are long. I think it's 6'6" is Brown. I think 6'5" Agbaji. You got Wilson, who's 6'8" on top of the corner.
It's a pretty –
It's a pretty
long athletic lineup. Like, there's like you said, it's
Remy Martin's obviously their smallest guy, but yeah, even though he's only 6 foot, he plays like – He plays doesn't bigger, but he's exactly. He's a dog. He's not backing down from any challenge. So but my whole thing too is like, I think we saw Nova play and beat a team that probably plays as tough or as physical as anyone in Houston, and they beat them at their own game. But like I said, that was with more for most of the game. It's going to be. I'm curious to just.
Kansas is a much better offensive team than Houston is.
Absolutely, I will not disagree with that. Absolutely.
So that's going to be an interesting. So Stevie, who do you got then? We'll just go around the horn here. Stevie, I'll come back and go last in 2 games. I think we'll save our natty predictions for once we know the final. We'll get it out, whether it's recording here or some way we'll get out our scores and stuff there. So just pick the 2 winners. Who's going to be playing in the national championship on Monday? We'll start with Steve, Troy, Tony, and then back to me.
This is so tough for me because
it's so hard.
I've been going back and forth at every game. It's really hard for me to imagine Carolina beating Coach K twice, beating him at home and then beating him in the tournament. It's really hard for me, especially with how that Duke team is playing. And it just feels like Duke's going to go to the championship in Coach K's final year. They're going to have a chance, whether they win or not, who knows. But I think Duke's going to win that game as much as I hate it, because I'll tell you right now, I will be betting Carolina spread. I will be betting Carolina money line, and I'll be cheering my heart out for Carolina. But I do think right now, if you said who I think is going to go to the championship, I think Duke does beat Carolina here. And then I'm going to go Villanova. I know they lost more. I think everyone's overreacting to them losing more. I'm going to take Nova with the points. I want to say it's at 4.5 right now, I believe. Kansas favored by 4.5. I'll take Nova with the points. I'll probably take a money line as well. I know they play a limited bench. So does Kansas. Kansas has like a 7-man rotation. Nova's now really going to be down to 6 guys. So foul trouble could be concerning. But this is a team. Doesn't foul a lot, doesn't miss a lot of free throws, doesn't turn the ball over. So this is a team that can get away with playing a 5-6-man rotation. I'll go with Villanova. I'm not doubting Jay Wright in March. What is he, 20-3, right? Isn't that his record? His last 20-3, 21-3. Just absurd.
Remember, he was the guy who couldn't win the big one too.
Yeah, just an absurd stretch in March Madness. So I will go with Villanova. They've overcome injuries before. I'll go with Nova versus Duke. I hate that I'm picking Duke because I want Carolina. On the record, I want Carolina to win. I think Duke's going to win.
Ooh, Stevie. Like we might be going the total opposite way from you.
Troy got called TV Duke in the group chat the other day. He
didn't didn't like that. He didn't like that.
No, that did not put a smile on my face. I got North Carolina beating Duke. They're playing amazing basketball, and I mean we can't forget that a month ago they went in Cameron Indoor and closed out Coach K's career there. I mean with authority. I think that'll give them some. I mean, it's the Final Four. They don't need any more inspiration to win or to be hard. But I think that'll definitely give them confidence. Like, hey, we beat the shit out of this team before. But also, it's going to tell Duke, like, okay, we got to not take these guys. Not like they're going to take them seriously, but, hey, like, we got to watch out for this team, too. We can't go in there thinking, oh, we beat this team twice if they had won in Duke prior. Oh, we beat this team twice. We're just going to do it again. It's going to be an amazing game. It's probably the best semifinal game you could ever wish for. It's Duke, North Carolina. It could be Coach K's last game ever. Like, no matter what, it's going to be an amazing game. Whether Duke wins or whatever, I'll just root for whoever they play against in the national championship game. But I'm going with North Carolina in this game. Villanova, Kansas, I just think Justin Moore's injury might be a little too much. They are going to be down to 5 guys. I mean, we'll see who's going to be that 6th man. Maybe that'll be some Final Four miraculous story. Guy averaged like 1.8 points off the bench, but I think Kansas is going to win. It's going to be a Roy Williams special. Roy Williams coached at Kansas.
The Roy Williams Bowl.
Yeah, the Roy Williams Bowl. Coached at Kansas, got replaced by Bill Self. Coached at North Carolina, got replaced by Hubert Davis.
That's true.
There we go. Yeah, I got North Carolina, Kansas.
Donnie, what you got?
I hate that I'm not switching it up, but I think I'm rolling same thing. I'm kind of in the same camp as Stevie though, where somewhere deep down in my heart, I think Duke's going to win, but I want North Carolina to win. I texted you guys, I think during the Baylor North Carolina game, since I was little, I've liked North Carolina strictly for their jerseys. And now they also just have such a lovable team this year too. Like I want Brady, Bill Walton, Manic to just be splashing threes all over Duke. So yeah, I gotta go North Carolina, and then I think, like I said a couple of times, I think Kansas is gonna be too much for Nova. So I'm trailing with TVD here. I'm going North Carolina, Kansas, baby.
I'm going. I got to go with Kansas. I had them in the Final Four anyways. I had Tennessee against them in my Final Four, but I've been really high on Kansas throughout this tournament, so I'm just going to ride them into the championship. I don't like the Justin Moore injury. That's never a good sign going into it. So I'm just going to take the Kansas team. I think it's a coin flip other than that, so I'm just going to pick that. I think Duke's going to win. I don't think that I'm very, very worried about the potential of this game could get out of hand too. Like if Duke gets rolling a little bit, I don't know. I'm hoping that's not the case. I think it could just be a rock fight too, because these kids are. I don't know what the emotions are going to be like. This is such a unique circumstance in college basketball, college sports, like sports in general. Like I can't. When is it we ever seen a coach playing against their biggest rival in a championship semifinal setting in his last game? I don't know if there's ever been like announced ahead of time. It doesn't happen. This has never happened like this ever in history. This is crazy. So I'm just gonna lean with Duke. I think Duke Kansas is the final, and that's a hell of a final for us to go out on. I mean, what a way it would go. But I do think
there's not a bad final matchup. There's not a.
I was just gonna say that.
Matchup. You got what? Duke Kansas.
Worst case scenario, the lowest odds scenario is UNC Villanova, who have delivered
one of the greatest
championship games ever. I was working that night, so I had to listen to most of the championship game. The only 2 shots I saw were the last 2 shots.
Really? Oh,
only 2.
I mean, they were.
I literally walked in and turned on the TV as Marcus Page was hitting his shot, and I was like, "Oh my
no!
God, won the title! This is crazy."
Yeah.
Well, no one talks about that shot because Nova ended up winning on the buzzer beater. But that was one of the craziest threes I've ever seen.
Triple pumping.
Yeah, it's like
he got it off.
So I just chucks it up.
Like that's why you felt in that moment. You're like, this team is destiny. Like you hit a shot like that. There's 0.5 seconds left, or 0.7, whatever it was, for Chris Jenkins to get it. That man.
Jenkins for the championship. I'll never forget that call.
Dude, that was just like the smoothest stroke like I've ever seen too, dude. Like I feel like leaving his hand, you knew it was going in.
All right.
Boys, we can only hope for one of those games to be like that, dude.
And that's crazy because that's the both underdogs winning. That would be the championship matchup. Would be Nova Carolina. And it's not a bad. It's a college basketball fans' dream Final Four because the casual fans love it because you got the big name schools in there. But all the ones who are like diehard college basketball fans too, they also love this matchup because it's because it should be 3 great games, 2 great semifinals, and a great championship with just so many storylines, so much emotion, and not to mention this is the perfect year to have sold out arenas again. It's going to be electric in terms of the environment. A type of electricity in college basketball we haven't seen in years.
And a TV night for the ages between the Final Four, 2 Final Four games, and night 1 of WrestleMania. Yeah. I'm gonna be on cloud 9, bro. I'm literally gonna Jake. I was like, yo, I get a Duke UNC Final Four game and WrestleMania at the same time. I'm not gonna be able to handle that at all, but it's gonna be great.
I got a couple of stats for why this is the best Final Four of all time.
Hit me with it.
One into it. Obviously, four amazing blue bloods.
Yes.
Duke, North Carolina, Villanova, Kansas. We've never had a Final Four like this before. We probably had one back to like 1953 or something was the last time we had 4 true blue bloods. And Villanova is blue, but I saw some people on Twitter the past.
They're a blue blood.
They're a blue blood. There's nothing you can say that'll tell me otherwise.
They're a newer blue blood, but they're still a blue blood.
Yes. Duke, 5 national titles, 17 Final Fours. North Carolina, 6 national titles, 21 Final Fours. Villanova, 3 national titles, 7 Final Fours. Kansas, 3 national titles, 16 Final Fours. These 4 teams have won 7 of the past 13 national championships. They've combined for 61 Final Fours altogether. All 4 teams have made 187 NCAA appearances. And this is the craziest thing that I read and saw. Combined in their NCAA tournament, all 4 of them are 432 and 172. The 4 teams combined have a 715 win percentage in the NCAA tournament.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That is ridiculous.
They win almost 3 out of every 4 games in the NCAA tournament.
It's crazy. Like I said, this is the dream matchup for any type of college basketball fan. And it really is. And there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to see Duke in the Final Four. I don't want to see them. And then when after a day of being mad that Duke got in Coach K's final season, I just looked at the matchups and I go, this is just fantastic. This is just going to be just a blessing for college.
It's the best thing for the sport is to have this kind of matchup in this setting is going to be It's going to be special. Like there's going to be eyes on it that it's going to be a bigger Final Four game, I think, in the modern era than we've had. I don't even know what the closest thing to it was. Probably the Duke Butler is probably the closest thing to it, but that's even still so early, like Twitter wise and everything. Like this is going to feel like when it comes to Saturday, you're going to feel the buzz. Like I feel like everywhere. And that's we haven't felt that for the Final Four in a while.
If the games are close, we're going to feel like it's been 3 national championships. With each Final Four matchup is going to feel like a championship game, and then the championship's going to obviously feel like.
And that's the beauty of the Final Four, right? Awesome. Is like both Final Four games honestly feel like championships games because it's so hard to get there. Like the championship is a bonus, but you win a Final Four game, like you're like, damn, like that's crazy. Like it's very unique in all of sports like that, where the semifinal, there's so much emphasis on it. But I think it matters so much more in these games that you feel rewarded once you get through it. So it's going to be a blast. It's going to be great. We'll enjoy it for all of us here. Thank you guys again. It's a breakdown. We're going to get our championship picks out there somehow Monday, but we're going to settle in here and enjoy these games. So for Dunny, for Troy, for Steve, this is Jake Micah. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And enjoy the game, folks. Have a great night.
Later, guys.